So it's like gang signs. Like yo-yo. It's really hard to move the middle finger in this one because I fucked up the sculpting process of it. So you can see like the fingers, where's the camera? You can see the fingers are really uneven. Conjuring 3. That's the movie we're looking at today. Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. Because I'm sure by now a lot of you have seen the movie. I'll try and keep the summary short. Basically this movie centers around the real life, like, Devil Made Me Do It case where a dude named Arnie Johnson killed his landlord and then tried to claim that it was because of demonic possession. So whereas the other movies were kind of like slow burn character build and then demonic climax, this one just hits the ground running. We have David Glatzel, who's a little 8-year-old boy possessed at the beginning of the movie and then exorcised in the opening scene. Like full on exorcism. We're talking like exorcism. We're talking like dishes flying, body contorting, giving it a heart attack with his mind. Like he literally like stops Ed Warren's heart, like, I will stop your heart. It's not how he says it. And then after that he hot potatoes over to Arnie Johnson's, his future brother-in-law. Possessed Arnie kills his landlord. The Warrens have to prove his innocence by working with the police and tying the case to other similar murders that also featured like weird satanic little trinkets that they were given. So they're running around grabbing clues, trying to uncover this master Satanist before they strike again. You know, we get a lot of long, slow shots of the Warrens like looking at each other or looking at things. It sucks. And I know, with such a like strong premise, how did they mess that up? Well, for starters, literally everything that this movie sets up, it never pays off on. Remember Ed Warren's heart attack? Yeah, you might have forgotten unless you were looking really closely and realized that he walks with a cane for most of the movie because it literally has no bearing on the plot. He's still running around like grabbing Lorraine and jumping on things and fighting giant zombies. Like it literally doesn't matter that he had a bypass surgery at the beginning of the movie. The Satanist also has no real reason for doing what she's doing. But worst of all, like the worst thing that it's like, oh, this movie doesn't pay it off at all, is like this movie's whole reason for existing is this court case and proving Arnie's innocence. The things that they do in this movie have nothing to do with that. Arnie walks just like he does in real life because they deem it a manslaughter case and he has a really strong self-defense and gets out for good behavior. So everything the Warrens did in this movie to prove his innocence and like solve the crime had nothing to do with the resolution of the plot. The plot just resolves itself. The only real plot thread that was really tied up was Arnie and his girlfriend Debbie marrying, but like you knew they were gonna do that because that's all there is to their characters. There's like absolutely nothing else. It's all they talk about. So if I were to rewrite this movie, which I did, if you see me like kind of glancing down that way, I'm actually looking at the treatment I wrote before I started this video to remember my talking points because I'm very like, like, you know, I'll drift off, I'll look at this hand and just forget that I was here to talk about the Conjuring movie. So I would totally change the family's dynamic to add conflict. We're never given a reason to care about Arnie and Debbie marrying. There's nothing stopping them from doing that in the movie. Just because the movie is based on a true story, you don't have to stick 100% to who those people were in real life. Clearly this movie didn't. They even changed the name of the murder victim. They even included murders that weren't real. So why not like jazz up the family story a little bit? I added this dynamic where the Glatzel family is kind of like your rich, old world Connecticut family, or like well off at least, you know, they want the best for their daughter. They've been in Connecticut for generations versus Arnie Johnson, the blue collar kid from the wrong side of the tracks, you know, maybe he came from an alcoholic family or he had a like rough past.
Drugs?
Thank you, no, I'm straight.
Just enough to make the Glatzel family kind of doubt him, even though that's not who he is now. You could use the intro scene to set up that he's different from them, using like his wardrobe, like they could be dressed kind of nicely, he could be dressed a little bit dirtier than them, they could be giving him the side eye, but you could also show that like David and Debbie, David's little possessed boy, remember? David and Debbie love him, and they want him around. Then at the picnic, when Debbie tells her mom later that Arnie proposed, you could turn that into like one of those awkward passive-aggressive conversations that moms in movies do, where it's like,
Be ridiculous. There's a big difference between marriageable material and a fling in the jungle.
A fling in the jungle?
Arnie could be listening, and he could feel kind of alienated and want to get away from that conversation, so he could maybe be like, I'm gonna go get more tuna salad inside or whatever. And he does. That gives us an opportunity to set up the next scare where he's isolated away from everyone else. It's more organic rather than just having him go inside and then get scared by the ghosts. And then later you can tie that in when the Warrens test him for possession by having him put his hand on the Bible and, like, you know, the Warrens doubt that he was actually possessed. You know, they start to walk away not wanting to risk their careers on a murder and a kid that's kind of like a little bit sketch. And the only thing that can make them change their minds is Debbie could follow Lorraine out the door and kind of be like, I was there that day. That wasn't the man I love. Like, if you won't do it for him, like, do it for me. Lorraine could remember how she and Ed also came from different backgrounds. Her being like the rich Catholic schoolgirl and Ed being the poor kid that worked at the movie theater. So, you know, they also came from different class backgrounds, but they came together over, like, their mutual love of ghosts and gazebos.
Gazebos! They're bullshit!
So the rest of the movie would play out similarly, with the Warrens working together with the cops to solve the crime, Scooby-Doo style. Except, so Ed had a heart attack. He wouldn't be able to, like, body slam into zombies and save Lorraine from falling off of the side of the cliff. He had a heart attack. Instead of having him kind of play action hero in this movie like he did in the other ones, have him sit this one out until the climax, and he struggles with that. Like, he struggles with the feeling that before he was Lorraine's Brock, and now he feels like her burden. Even though Lorraine carrying his heart pills in her locket at the end of the movie tell the viewer and Ed that that's not true. Instead of Ed, Lorraine would be working with the skeptic cop for most of the movie. So, you know, that ties it in with the whole, like, doubt versus blind faith thing that we've been doing in this version of The Conjuring that I wrote in 5 minutes. Over the course of things, he would slowly warm up to the Warrens and the existence of things he doesn't understand. You know, give him, like, slow crumbs to make him believe, but still not have him see everything. Like, nearly being attacked by the morgue zombie and almost seeing the final boss battle. You could have Ed come back at that point of the movie thinking that Lorraine sent him some psychic message for help, but it was actually the master Satanist. He gets possessed, he knocks out the cop character before the really witchy shit hits the fan. That way you can have the cop character still have, like, a healthy amount of skepticism, despite helping the Warrens if you ever want to use that character for, like, future Conjuring installments. Because you always need that contrast character that's like,
I don't believe in God. I believe in science.
This brings me to my next point, the master Satanist herself, or the occultist as the movie loves to call her. I read that initially they were going to feature the demon more, but decided to focus more on the human antagonist because they felt like it was like, oh, this is something new that we've never done before and it's going to be way more interesting. But, oh my god, they did her so dirty. Lord Denethor from Lord of the Rings. I can't recall his character's name in this movie, so that's what I'm going to call him. He has that one line, oh, if you're asking why about a Satanist, you're asking the wrong questions, because Satanists don't ask themselves why. And it's like, that line literally felt like the writer of this movie was being like, ha ha ha, like he took out his big fat and slapped me in the face with it. Like, no, you're not off the hook from writing a character motivation just because you give another character a stupid line like that. Like, it was almost insulting. How about instead of making her the priest's biological daughter, you make her like an adoptive daughter? Like, he studied the disciples of Ram, right? So why not have her be a baby that he found, that he rescued from the disciples of Ram, like some baby that they were going to use either as a sacrifice or something like that. And like, after taking down some of the disciples of Ram and, like, collecting their stuff, he rescues this baby and he tells the church that he killed her because the church was probably going to do that themselves, like cleanse her or something, give her like one of those violent exorcisms that in real life always end in death. So he takes her and he raises her underground, and everything's happy in the beginning, it's just the two of them. But as she grows older, she finds out about her backstory and she grows to resent him and kind of be like, oh, the church didn't want you to have me, why? And am I just another part of your satanic collection? Like, am I just something else for you to study, kind of thing? Like, she starts to wonder all of these things despite not telling him. Not having the heart to turn her in or kill her when he discovers what he's been doing, he just kind of like quits the church, but becomes obsessed with the Warrens. Like, maybe Lorraine could find a newspaper clipping of one of their cases, like the Annabelle case or something, and kind of suspect him. But in reality, he was more just like because he knew that such evil existed even in his own home, it gave him a sense of peace to know that such good existed with the Warrens. Then the daughter could grow up, then that could be the daughter's motivation. She wants to take down the Warrens to kind of prove to her dad that it's like, no, my way is the way. I mean, it's not a great motivation. It's one that I literally just typed up here in minutes before filming this video, but it's a motivation that at least has more thought rather than just
Ona? Satan's pretty cool.
You could have them defeat the occultist and have the resolution be like a short court scene where the Warrens and the previously skeptic cop like present their evidence, and they're kind of like, oh, look at all these things that we found linking the cases together to like occultism and blah blah blah. You could have the judge laugh them out of the courtroom, like, get the fuck out of here. But have a bunch of shots of like the jury's different facial expressions showing that like their minds were changed by what they saw, you know, enough that it was enough to overturn it from first-degree murder to manslaughter, something like that, you know. And then you could have your epilogue with Arnie and Debbie got married, and Ed built Lorraine the gazebo. I mean, I personally think this movie would have also worked way better if they just changed the names of the family as well. They changed the name of the murder victim, so why not change the names of the family? You already are adding in all this fake shit, and I'm pretty sure David Glatzel's actual exorcism didn't feature flying plates and Ed Warren's heart attack. That might have been the bacon, so... Change the names, avoid the lawsuits from the angry families lied about, and then, you know, money. Anyway, this is part of like the things I'm working on right now. This is actually what I'm procrastinating on to film this video. It's a work in progress. Right now, obviously these are like in the prototype stages. They're not ready to go out, and I'm still in the process of like mixing and paint matching all these different crazy shades. My effect shop is pretty small, and once I'm done with a project and I film the project, all of this shit just takes up way too much room in my shop. So I'm gonna open an Etsy shop / eBay store just to like get rid of things that I no longer want. This is my hand, by the way. So gummy. This was originally for a deboning gag for a movie that never aired.